Okay. Kel to Corky.
What exactly do you do for a living?
Cleaner.
You mean you're a hitman? Cool.
When you write one of your darker poems, how do you feel after? That is a damn good question. I'm glad you asked me that, Kel to Corky. Um, do you know, it's more so when I write one of my dark stuff, like Axis of Denial would be the obvious example. When you ask me that, it's strange because it's more what comes beforehand than actually what comes after. When I'm researching, yeah, when I'm looking at pictures of war, I'm looking at victims bombed, I'm looking at the effects of DU weaponry in Iraq and Afghanistan, yeah, as I'm going through it, first of all, I'm not too bothered. Then after a while, the kind of veil, that kind of shroud of negativity starts to come over me, and I start thinking, my God, is this the world? Is this it? Is this real? Guess what, pal? It is. That's not a nice feeling. But I think the way I feel afterwards, once I've written the poem, I've put the images in, I've done the music, it's all there. Happy go lucky, fat lady sings, and the YouTube video is up. I feel like I've actually gone up a level. And this is going to sound odd. I feel like I've done it, I've gone through it, I've achieved, there's my product as a result of thus. So, to answer your question, how do I feel after? It's like breathing fresh air again. But it's fresher than what it was before. That's how I feel. Okay. Liz 1060. Ask me, when did you write your first poem? How old were you? What were the circumstances? Do you still have it or remember it? Thank you, Liz. Good question. When did you write your first poem? Right. About 4.5 years ago, I was working for a commercial events company or a commercial media company. And what they did is they put on commercial media conferences and they owned several magazines. When I came to them, they had no block on the internet or what have you, so I could look up what I want. So I used to go to roadrunnerrecords.com and listen to a lot of the bands and so on. And that's why I started to initially learn my method or my methodology of writing. That I'd listen to this music and it would suggest something to me, it would make me feel something, and I wanted to write and express what I was feeling. And so that's exactly what I did. And it's just one particular lunchtime, 4.5 years ago, that I started writing this poem, and I emailed it to a couple of friends, and they said, "Hey, that's really, really good. You ought to post it up somewhere, you know." And so, what am I now? 31. So would have been about 26, 27 at the time. So we'll just say mid to late 20s. And the poem, I believe it was this one. I mean, we're talking 4.5 years ago. You expect me to remember what I was doing in a lunch break at work 4.5 years ago? No, it can't be done. So I dug out one that was exceptionally old. This one, can't see the camera, but anyway. This is cool. I'm going to read it to you now. And you'll notice, like, if you remember back to where I just read I Am Highway, to where I read this one, you can tell this is one of my earlier stuffs. And this is called A Gothic Suicide. Felt all that was within, the dread and lonely pain, foreseeing all the grey clouds and endless rain. In an entrapment of a bleak bedroom place, many scratches of fingernails adorn her face. Scars of the tormented, and that without release, collected them like doors upon skin like a crease. Sunken eyes reflecting the soul of a sunken heart, when future's hope seemed diminished and torn apart. Black lines of a heavy makeup drawn down by so many tears shift beneath her failed crown, clasping her wrist as another attempt failed and stings. The music of her emotion now in her ear doth rings. Though destination sands of her future are running out, upon her lips adorn the kiss of this deathly spout. That a dagger drawn from a box of marble and wood, in her bedroom undetermined to whether she should. The bare trees of autumn tapping the dark window, though to convince her of an alternative innuendo. So much has she lost, that her black nails are tight around the handle of this blade and losing sight. That with one last breath, stolen by her searing pain, a final thrust, that this blade pierced without a strain into her solemn heart, choking her grief as her blood ran like tears down her breast, staining like mud, dropping to the floor like a seed of the dandelion, falls upon the wind's end, but only to see oblivion. So much of her last thoughts as her life ebbs away, never shall she see the beginning of a newborn day, as the time for her life has slowly begun to stop. From the blade's handle, blood spills drop by drop by drop. Silent now, as her body lay still, grey as the sky. Young was her soul, victimized, too young to die. Thank you. And that was Gothic Suicide. So that was one of the first poems I wrote. So, after all that, swiftly moving on. Next question. Thomas!
They got cars big as bars, they got rivers of gold, but the windows right through you, it's no place for the old. When you first took my hand on a cold Christmas Eve, you promised me Broadway was waiting for me. You were handsome,
You were pretty queen of New York City.
when the band finished playing, they held on for more. Sinatra was swinging, all the junk they were singing. We kissed on the corner, then danced through the night. The boys of the NYPD choir were singing Go Away Babe, and the bells were ringing out for Christmas Day.
Hey, buddy. Are you going to keep at the dark poetry or try another theme? As I may have previously mentioned, yeah, I do want to stay with the dark theme. At least for now. I've got one or two ideas in the pipeline. I've got another video, I've got a video collaboration completed, which I've yet to put up. I've got some material in the background which isn't so dark. But like I said in previous ones, I really want to look at doing short movies, that kind of thing, and they can be whatever I want them to be. So to answer your question, yeah, I do wish to stay with the dark side because that's where I'm more comfortable. Dark side, stay with the dark side. Sorry, random thought that just occurred to me. But yeah, when I get asked that, I always feel like I'm pressured to move on to something else. But to be honest with you, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I like this. I have a odd perversion. I enjoy scaring people. I enjoy seeing the intensity in people's faces. I don't know why, I just do. So for now, I'm going to stay with the dark stuff, but watch this space, you never know.